What's up, guys? Heart Pirates TCG here with my little blankie, trying to be all cozy and whatnot on this what is this, a Tuesday night, Wednesday night? I don't know. uh I made this video probably like 5 or 6 different times because I didn't know exactly how I wanted to make this, and I just wasn't happy with the results before. So I want to go ahead and just give you some do's and don'ts with Gecko Moria, and I'm going to give you guys my deck profile on Deco. I've been drinking a little bit. I want to give you guys my take on Gecko Moria as well. But real quick, actually, we have our second sponsor ever for this channel. So actually, the sponsor is FlexiSpot. For those of you guys who don't know who FlexiSpot is, it's one of those electronic desk companies that obviously it can go up, it can go down. It's just a really solid materials. They sent me the desk, and now it's my primary desk. It feels really good. I'm a person that has banged a couple desks due to League of Legends or yellow triggers that come at an untimely time, and this seems like it, can hold up the test of time. So yeah, if you guys want to check out, if you guys want to get a desk, go ahead and check out the link below to get one yourself. I personally got the biggest one possible because I have 2 monitors, a desktop, a printer, all types of stuff. So I really like this, the way this desk feels, and also just the flexibility of being able to raise it or lower it, if you want to sit on like a medicine ball or something like that. If you work from home or just on the computer a lot, like sometimes like changing the way that you sit down, or how long you sit down can really help. And I'm a person, obviously, if you're in my Discord, I'm a person that tries to be as active as possible because I think, living a healthy life is super important. So this just is another thing that can help you with that. So I'm super thankful that FlexiSpot decided to, give me the sponsorship, and thank you so much. And yeah, back to the video. All right, guys, so this is my Gecko Moria deck. This is all very experimental, but, this is something that I've been testing out that I've been having a lot of fun with. I don't know if it's necessarily the best Gecko Moria deck list, but it's definitely, I think it's competitive for sure. I'm not saying this is a bad list. It's competitive. Obviously, I haven't really tried it out against like the highest level of opponents. But from what I can tell, it's pretty consistent, and it offers a lot of unique plays that other Gecko Moria decks just don't have. So let me go through my list and I'll talk to you about that. So I'm playing 3 of the Kuzans. I find this deck struggles a lot with cost reduction, even though it is a black deck. Now this does not play Great Eruption. If Great Eruption is not banned, then we will go ahead and talk about something that obviously we'll make a hot fix for this deck that includes Great Eruption in there. There's definitely some things I can that I can take out, some ratios that I can change to fit Great Eruption in there. I'll talk about that, if that's relevant. So 3 Kuzan, we're playing a total of 10 2K counters with 4 Suru, 2 Sindri, and then 4 of the Perona. This card is just the engine of your deck. This card is fantastic. We're playing 4 Borsalino. Now, the reason I'm playing 4 Borsalino and 3 Kuzan is because I find that, obviously I want to go second with this deck, right? But I find that, Perona is a huge problem, the leader Perona. And, if you go second, it makes that deck a whole lot worse. And Borsalino is the only card they can't KO, obviously with X-Drake or Ryuma, or something like that. So it's really important that like this Borsalino can, you can find this Borsalino more than even the Kuzan in that matchup, because the Borsalino is just so much better. Like having that body that can stick to the board, and then on 6 Dawn playing something like like Sabo, or even now you can play the Kuzan, because now you can just draw a card, and if they don't have a way to kill it, then obviously the next turn you can set up for your 8 Dawn play, which with Gecko Moria, and obviously you can do Lucci or Absalom or something like that. So that's the reason I'm playing 4 of the Borsalino, because I think it's just slightly better into the Perona matchup. Then we're playing a one of Tech Choice Kuzan. Like I said, this deck kind of struggles with cost reduction without the Great Eruption there. Obviously the Ice Age can help a little bit, and obviously the Helm Beppo can help a lot. With the Gecko Moria play. But other than that, I like to have this card as a one of, and because we don't have the option of playing something like Kaido, we have that extra flex spot to play, a 10 cost card. And I've always liked Kuzan in Sakazuki. It's just I thought Kaido is slightly better. Now we don't have access to Kaido because we're a mono black deck. So the Kuzan is a nice little one of that. Obviously, in certain situations it's really good. It's fantastic into yellow, of course. This is your win condition into a Nell and Katakuri. And then obviously we're playing 2 Isho as well, because I like ripping cards from people's hands. And if you are playing into something like Perona or even the mirror match, a lot of times they will have 5 or 6 cards in hand. If they have 6 cards in hand, or even if they have 5 cards in hand, if you play this down and they like on 9 Dawn, it's very rare that they're going to actually be able to get rid of this card if they play the Gecko Moria, because even with what is it called, even with Ice Age, or I'm sorry, with Great Eruption, it drops this down to a 6. And if they play Gecko, you know, they don't have like they can't rest this prior to playing Gecko, so they can't hit it with like Ryuma or something like that. So they're gonna really have to like think about how to get this off the board. And then obviously on Tendon, if you drop this Isho and you drop the Gecko Moria can get back Helmeppo and then the Lucci, and then you can pop like, I think it's like a 6 and an 8 or something like that, because obviously it minuses everything by 3. Helmeppo minuses something by 3 as well, so you pop like what is it, yeah, like an 8, and then I think it's like a 4 or something like that. Yeah, an 8 and a 4, which is pretty good, right? And then obviously you're playing Absalom as well. Now this is like when you establish something like Isho or Kuzan, or you have this Kuzan out, that means obviously if this is in your trash, then it can kill, you know, something pretty big, right? Whether it be, you know, a 6 cost, a 7 cost, you know, something like that. Absalom is pretty good that you can obviously play it. We're playing 3 Anupe just to get some cards in the trash. We're playing 4 Gecko Moria, obviously, 4 Hogback, obviously. Like I said, the Sindri and the Perona, 4 Helmeppo, and 4 Ice Age. So that's the deck right there. I did have some gameplay, but I accidentally deleted it, so I actually can't show it to you. But this video is not going to be about gameplay. It's going to be about the do's and don'ts with this deck. And I find a lot of like, I'm gonna talk to you about the early game, the mid game, the late game, stuff like that. But I'm gonna tell you the pitfalls of this deck first. So the pitfalls for this deck this is not Sakazuki. This is not a deck that can remove a bunch of cards on the board willy-nilly. This is a deck that is very mid-range. It's the master of none, jack of all trades. And what that means is we don't have access to Houndblaze and the new 2-cost event, and you know, Rebecca Hina Lucci, and you know, Borsellino. We don't have access to all these bottom deck material cards, right? What we do is we can set up, we can play a very mid-range game, rip some cards from your hands, you know, trade efficiently with like, with Dawn, and then we can set up a win condition with our big characters like Gecko Moria, Isho, Kuzan, at least in my version. And obviously once you establish those characters, sometimes they're pretty hard to get off the board unless they have something like Sakazuki or even Katakuri, the 8-cost character. But yeah, that's why this deck I think struggles just a little bit. Not my deck in particular, but Gecko Moria, is because, you know, we're playing in a meta where there's just a better removal deck in Sakazuki, unless obviously it gets banned. And then obviously, you know, if yellow triggers pretty well, it's gonna be pretty tough to beat that deck as well. Now the Kuzan does help a little bit, but of course you could definitely mill it with your leader effect. So, you know, if you wanted to play 2 Kuzan, 1 Isho, you totally can do that. But yeah, so that's the downfall of Gecko Moria, is people try to play it like it's Katakuri, or I'm sorry, Sakazuki, but it's not. It is a deck that is more reliant on trading efficiently and setting up your win condition than it is KOing stuff. Now, a lot of times when you get rid of cards on the board, that's going to be through battle and not through KO effects. Now, the KO effects help, but you have to put yourself in the position to actually get to that point. So, with that being said, how do you get to that point? Well, it's about setting up your trash, right? Now, obviously, you know, that's you know, that helps, but a lot of people don't realize that, like, you know, countering with certain cards, like, you know, countering with Helmeppo early, or sometimes even over countering. If you're at 6 Dawn, you're going to 8 Dawn next turn, you have nothing in your trash, you know, hypothetically, you know, if they attack for 5k, why not just, you know, counter with Helmeppo and, you know, Borsellino, or, you know, Anupe and Borsellino. That way you can at least get value from your Gecko Moria whenever you play it. I see so many people just like playing the game like they're not going to play this Gecko Moria, which is obviously the whole point of the deck. And when you don't have like the most efficient cards off Gecko Moria, then like when you play it just doesn't do anything. Like this card sucks if you don't actually have the right targets for it, right? And obviously the right targets in most cases are Helmeppo and Lucci, but when you don't have those characters in the trash, you do a very inefficient Gecko Moria play. You play like Hogback and Sindri, which obviously like you can do, but you know, it's not getting you the value. Like you're basically wasting a turn to establish a 9k and a 5k, but you know, in this meta, you know, this is easily removed with, you know, with a couple cards, maybe even one card if you're playing against yellow, and then this is just a 5k body. So like, you know, you spend a whole turn doing nothing. Friggin' tomfoolery, fooling around. So basically what I have in mind is just play the game like you know what you're going to be doing with that Dawn in the future. Set up a turn, you know, where you can obviously like get the most use out of your cards. Now it depends on what version you're playing, right? But if you're playing Gecko Moria, you know, maybe what you should do is, you know, instead of playing Hogback, to put back your Absalom and your Helmeppo to like get back a 2k counter, maybe you play, instead of the hogback, maybe you just play, I don't know, a Borsalino instead, because obviously you keep those cards in your trash, or even a Kuzan, and then you establish a body, right? That's obviously a blocker, or can obviously help you with your Gecko Moria, revives. So like, a lot of people, they'll literally like overplay their characters, and put cards back, from the trash, whether it be with Lucci, Hogback, or Absalom, and they're getting rid of targets that they need for Gecko Moria. Like, this deck thrives with like bringing cards back from the trash, and if you're not doing that, then like this deck is just a vanilla leader. Like, it doesn't do anything, right? Another thing too is like when people over counter to protect some of their characters, right? So my favorite thing is like, I love when they kill Perona, especially if I have the Dawn, like next turn, if I have like free Dawn, if they have 5 cards in hand and they kill Perona, I'm just going to bring it back with Gecko Moria and attack for 6 or 7k, and you're going to trash a card. So like, I don't need to counter to save the Perona, because, if I counter to save the Perona, like, I'm just wasting a card on a card that I can just bring back for free and also get rid of one of their cards, right? Another thing too with Gecko Moria is, this deck is something where like you need to, what is it called? Like, play some of your 2k counters, right? So like, if you have Sindri, of course Sindri is a 2k counter, but it also, fuels your trash. So obviously you want to go second, but if you go first, I really recommend playing this Sindri on one Dawn, because you can start fueling your trash with Helmeppo and Lucci and Perona, and then on your 3 Dawn turn, if this Perona's in the trash, you can keep just recycling it and abusing it with Gecko Moria. And that card rip is actually a huge deal, because obviously Perona can rip 2 to 3 cards out of their hand if they're not careful, and then if they still have cards in their hand, you can hit them with Isho, right? Basically what I'm saying is, with this deck, you just have to make sure you're setting up your cards correctly, in a way that basically like enables you to, plus off of the recycling from the trash, right? Like, Perona is not just a free body. I mean, it's not technically free because you're discarding a card, but that card is negated. Like, you're going to play that card anyway, and that card is going to rip a card from their hand on top of whatever they use to either counter, or if they take the life, it's a 2-card swing, right? Or technically a 1-card swing, because you're trashing a card, but you're playing the card, and then you're ripping basically 2 cards from either their hand and or life. So, this deck is not like, it's not a reactionary deck like Sakazuki, right? It is a deck where you have to be methodical in how you plan your turns ahead, right? Like, sometimes if people like if you're going to 8 Dawn next turn, if they attack 8k into the Borsalino, why not just let the Borsalino die and then bring it back with the Gecko Moria? Like, there's so many times where people over counter to like protect cards that they can easily bring back with for free with Gecko Moria. It's just stuff like that people really lose to. Now, I will say, obviously, this deck, the reason I have it not in the S tier, like I had Perona, Anel, and Sakazuki, I think I had Katakuri in there too, I'm not entirely sure. But the reason I don't have this in S tier is because it does lose really hard to Sakazuki, and it loses to Perona as well. Perona basically is like low-key slightly better than Moria because of Perona's ability to constantly be able to remove things on curve, right? Like, that's the same thing as Sakazuki can do, right? Sakazuki removes things on curve and is like hyper consistent. Perona is like, it's like a 1-card combo to remove like every body that Gecko Moria plays. So this deck does really struggle into decks that can like not only build a board, but also like, like remove your board as well. Like, you can easily get free cards, off of your leader effect, but if they're easily removed by resting with Perona and then hitting it with Ryuma, like those cards aren't really getting you a whole lot of value. It's just like, okay, they discard a card, but like now you're bored, like you have no board. So that's the only thing I don't like about Gecko Moria. And there's not really a whole lot of ways that I've seen that can like really fix that problem. If you guys have any, ideas, let me know. I've been testing a lot of Gecko Moria decks. I've been testing like a super hand rip version where it plays negative hollow. I've been testing, obviously a version where it doesn't play Isho or Kuzan at all. I've tested like a lot of different versions, and I can't find a consistent deck that can either, go to toe with like most of the cards or most of the decks in the meta, or if it goes toe to toe with Sakazuki, it loses to everything else. So it's just really tough for this deck to thrive in with this meta coming out. But I will say it does have some favorable matchups. Red Purple Law I feel like is very favored. What is it called? Enel, I feel like is pretty favored. Even something, I wouldn't say Katakuri is favored, but I would say it's maybe 50-50. If you draw really perfect and you go second, then I definitely think that, you know, Gecko Moria is favored. But if you go first, I would say it's probably 50-50 depending on triggers and whatnot. The late game of this deck, basically all you're doing is like, if you're able to like play like the Gecko Moria or the Isho, any one of the big drops, basically your entire game is just recycling Absalom basically over and over again, while making sure you have at least enough counters or blockers to get out of an attack. And then you're basically going to be able to like slowly like kill your opponent in the resource game. Like I said, you're going to be discarding a lot of cards to their hand with Perona or Isho. So anytime they're above 5 cards in hand, you rip one out and then you establish a 5k body. You know, if ripping a card out of their hand isn't as important, you can, you know, pop a 5k with, you know, with Absalom, or, you know, a 7k with, you know, if Kuzan's on the board or something like that. It's just really, really powerful at basically stopping your opponent in the late game. But in the early game, you really have to trade efficiently and not try to go too overboard. I will say in the early game, resting your characters, you know, if there are something that isn't that important, like if resting your Kuzan is a little bit dangerous, you know, if you don't have the Gecko in hand, resting your like Porcelino in certain situations really dangerous, because you know, like I said, if you don't have the 8-cost Gecko Moria in hand. But you know, resting something like Perona is not dangerous at all, because if they kill the Perona, that's totally fine. You can keep bringing it back and then ripping cards in their hand. So like, you know, stuff like Hogback, stuff like Perona, those are the cards that you're totally okay with them killing, but you have to make sure that at least get their value off too. Like you have to trade efficiently with their board, like I said. You know, so like if you're at 5 life and they establish like 1 body on the board, there's no reason to attack with any of your characters, your 4-cost characters, because, you know, you need those 4-cost characters to help establish the board, or to help fight for board control, which is how this deck wins, right? Is like, you know, this deck is able to plus super hard off of the characters it gets from your trash. So, you know, if you're able to control the board, at least for the most part, in the early to mid game, you know, by not turning these characters sideways, you can at least have some semblance of like, you know, an even board or even board control if you do it right. And when you play this Gecko Moria, you're getting so many cards for free, and you're swinging the tide in your favor with the Helmeppo and the Lucci play, that you're able to basically control the game until the end of the game. Obviously, same with all the big drops right here. You know, if you can play these safely, which of course you have to play the game in the early game to play these safely. You know, try not to take too much life, but try not to lose board control as well, because you know, if you lose board control, the Isho and the Kuzan really can't do a whole lot. And that's why I say this deck really needs to prepare for the late game, because if you don't prepare for the late game, you're just going to lose. And your big drops, even Gecko Moria, aren't really going to matter if you lost board control already. So yeah, those are the main things that I will talk about with this deck. Of course, I didn't really have a whole lot planned in terms of like slideshows or whatnot. If you guys wanted like coaching for these decks, be sure to sign up on my Discord. Let me know if you guys need a link for that. I'll give you a one-time link for it. I've had some trolls recently in my Discord, so I've been trying to limit, you know, how many people can join. But, you know, if you're interested in coaching, or even like my playmats or something like that, or just want to join our community and you're actually like a good solid person that is going to like contribute and like, you know, be like a good vibe, I'd love to have you in our Discord, right? But there's some trolls that, you know, I obviously don't want in there, so it's just been annoying me. So yeah, much love to you guys. Thanks FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Like I said, if you guys want that to check out a desk, obviously it helps support the channel, and then, you know, you get a really nice quality desk. So with that being said, see you later, guys. Peace.